Brandon Riddle stood in his garage, hands on his hips, surveying the battered Honda Civic his wife had just driven home. The silver paint was faded, the bumper had a crack, but Claire's face beamed with pride. $4,200, she announced, patting the hood. Can you believe it? That dealership, Gaines Auto Sales, the guy practically threw it at me. Said he needed to move inventory fast. Brandon circled the vehicle, his mechanical engineering background making him naturally analytical. At 34, he'd learned to trust his instincts. Something felt off about a deal this good in their market. Which guy? Wallace Gaines himself. Owner. Weird dude. Kept checking his phone, seemed distracted. Claire grabbed the paperwork from inside. Look, clean title, recent inspection. The salesman, Harvey something. He tried to steer me toward a newer Accord, but Wallace overruled him. Almost like he wanted this one gone. Brandon ran his finger along a dent in the rear quarter panel. Previous owner? Estate sale, apparently. The paperwork says Angeline Jarvis. Deceased. Claire's enthusiasm dimmed. I know it's morbid, but the price. Hey, it's fine. Brandon pulled her close. Death doesn't make a car cursed. Just makes it available. They'd been married 3 years, and Claire still worked 2 jobs while Brandon built his consulting business from their home office. Every dollar mattered. If she was happy with the Civic, he'd make peace with his unease. That night, Brandon couldn't sleep. He kept returning to Claire's description of Wallace Gaines, distracted, eager to sell one specific car below market value. At 2 a.m., he found himself in the garage with his laptop, running the VIN through every database he had access to. The car's history was clean. Too clean. Registration records showed Angeline Jarvis had owned it for 8 months before her death 6 weeks ago. Before that, the trail went cold. No previous owners listed, no accident reports, nothing. As if the car had simply materialized into existence 2 years ago. Brandon pulled up Angeline Jarvis's obituary. Beloved teacher and community volunteer, died unexpectedly at age 43. No cause of death listed. No funeral home mentioned. Just a brief paragraph and a request for donations to a local charity. He clicked through to the charity's website. It didn't exist. Friday afternoon, Brandon was deep in CAD drawings for a client when his phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. Mr. Riddle? This is Dale Haney from Gaines Auto Sales. We need to discuss the Honda Civic your wife purchased. Brandon saved his work. What about it? There's been a clerical error. Haney's voice was tight, controlled. The vehicle shouldn't have been sold. We need it back immediately. We'll refund the full purchase price plus $15,000. $15,000? For a car worth maybe $5,000. Sir, please. This is urgent. We can have someone to your location within the hour with a cashier's check. Brandon walked to the window overlooking their driveway where the Civic sat. What's really going on? A pause. Then, the previous owner's family has claimed the vehicle wasn't part of the estate. Legal complications. We're trying to avoid litigation. Then the family should contact us with documentation. Mr. Riddle, real desperation now. Name your price. Brandon's pulse quickened. I need to discuss this with my wife. We'll call you back. We're sending someone anyway. Please, don't drive the vehicle. The line went dead. Brandon immediately called Claire at her office. Don't react, just listen. That car dealership wants the Civic back. Badly. I think there's something in it they need. Something in it, Claire whispered. Like what? I'm going to check. If I'm right, we might have stumbled into something serious. Come straight home after work. Don't stop anywhere. He spent the next 45 minutes methodically searching the Civic. Glove compartment, center console, under seats, nothing unusual. He checked behind panels, under floor mats, inside the spare tire well. Clean. Then he remembered his father's old trick from his repo days. Pop the trunk, pull back the carpeted floor, check the actual trunk floor underneath. Brandon lifted the carpet. Beneath it, hidden in the spare tire well, was a waterproof aluminum case. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside, for USB drives, a burner phone, and a leather journal filled with handwritten notes. He opened the journal to a random page. March 15th. G confirmed payment $50,000. Target, Eric Fernandez. Method, staged accident, Highway 9. Completion, March 23rd. Brandon's blood ran cold. He flipped to another entry. July 2nd, G requested rush job. Target, Granville Gilbert. Method, home invasion. Completion, July 8th. Payment $75,000. The entries went back 2 years. Dozens of names. Dozens of completions. A vehicle pulled into his driveway. Through the window, Brandon saw Dale Haney stepping out of a black SUV, phone pressed to his ear. Brandon shoved the aluminum case under his workbench, threw the trunk carpet back in place, and closed the garage door. By the time Haney reached the front door, Brandon had composed himself. Mr. Riddle. Haney was thin, sharp-featured, wearing an expensive suit that didn't match his dealership credentials. Thank you for waiting. I have the check. Show me documentation that the family has a legitimate claim to the vehicle. Haney's jaw tightened. I explained this was a legal matter. Then have their lawyer contact ours. We're not handing over property without proper documentation. Mr. Riddle, you don't understand the situation. I understand someone wants this car very badly. I understand you're offering $37,000 total for a vehicle worth $5. I understand that makes no sense unless there's something specific about this car you need. Brandon crossed his arms. So no deal. Not without answers. Haney's expression shifted. The professional facade cracked, revealing something colder underneath. You've looked through the car. It's my car. Did you find anything interesting? Like what? Haney stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mr. Riddle, there are people who would pay significantly more than $37,000 to ensure certain items remain unfound. I'm offering you a way out of this with your pockets full and your life simple. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Haney pulled out his phone, typed something. I'm telling them the car is secure and you're negotiable. But that status can change very quickly. Think about your wife. Think about your nice, quiet life. Brandon felt rage building, but kept his voice level. Get off my property. 24 hours, Mr. Riddle. Then the offer changes and the approach changes. Haney walked back to his SUV, made another call, and drove away. The moment he was gone, Brandon called Leroy Bright, his closest friend from college who now worked as an investigative journalist. They'd stayed tight through the years. Leroy was the one person Brandon trusted with something this explosive. Remember when you said if I ever stumbled onto a real story, you'd want first crack at it? Brandon said when Leroy picked up. Yeah. Bring your recording equipment and your lawyer's number. I found something that's either the biggest story of your career or going to get us both killed. 2 hours later, Leroy sat at Brandon's kitchen table, methodically photographing each page of the journal while his digital recorder captured everything. Claire was beside Brandon, her hand gripping his. This is insane, Leroy muttered, snapping another photo. These names, Eric Fernandez was that city councilman who died in a car crash. Granville Gilbert was the defense attorney found dead in his home. The police ruled it a robbery gone wrong. There are 43 names, Brandon said. I looked up a dozen. All dead within the past 2 years. All ruled accidents, suicides, or random crimes. And you think Wallace Gaines is behind this? The entries mention G constantly. Payments, targets, methods. Angeline Jarvis worked for Gaines, maybe kept records as insurance or leverage. When she died, the car got mixed up with regular inventory. Leroy ejected the memory card, pocketed it. I need to verify some of this before we go public. If these are real contract killings, we're talking about organized crime, possibly corruption reaching into law enforcement. We need to be careful about who we trust. What do I do about the 24-hour deadline? Stall them. I'll spend tomorrow confirming details, finding sources. Meanwhile, Leroy pointed at the aluminum case. That evidence needs to be somewhere safer than your garage. And you two need to consider relocating temporarily. I'm not running from my own house, Brandon said. These people think they can threaten me, threaten Claire, and I'll just roll over? No, I want to end this. Claire squeezed his hand. Brandon, if these are really killers, then they've gotten away with it for too long. He looked at Leroy. How do we turn this evidence into a weapon? Leroy grinned. It was the same reckless expression from their college days, when they'd exposed the university's embezzlement scandal. Now you're speaking my language. Saturday morning, Brandon drove to a storage facility 3 towns over and rented a unit under a false name. He'd made copies of everything. The journal photos on 3 separate drives, the original USB contents backed up to encrypted cloud storage. The physical evidence went into a safe deposit box at a bank across state lines. Insurance policies, all of them. Meanwhile, Leroy worked his sources. By noon, he'd confirmed something chilling. 7 of the completed targets in the journal had life insurance policies that paid out to shell companies. 3 of those shell companies traced back to a holding group owned partially by Wallace Gaines. He's not just running a murder-for-hire operation, Leroy explained over a secure call. He's profiting from the murders directly. Someone wants a business rival dead? Gaines arranges it, takes a cut of the fee, and if the target has life insurance, he's a beneficiary through these intermediary companies. Who's doing the actual killing? I found a connection to Dale Haney. 5 years ago, he was arrested for aggravated assault. Charges mysteriously dropped. Before that, military service with a dishonorable discharge. He fits the profile. Brandon pulled up Haney's social media, carefully, through a VPN. The man kept a low profile, but Brandon found a photo from a hunting trip. Standing beside Haney, Harvey Glover, the salesman from Gaines Auto Sales, and 2 other men Brandon didn't recognize. There's a crew, Brandon said. Multiple people involved, which means they have resources. Brandon, I've been thinking about this all night. We should go to the FBI. With what? A journal that could be fiction? USB drives we obtained by technically stealing a car component? They'll open an investigation that takes months while Gaines destroys evidence and disappears. Or worse, he has connections in law enforcement and gets tipped off. So what's your plan? Brandon had been awake all night, mind racing through possibilities. We make them panic, force them into mistakes. I want Gaines so scared and desperate that he confesses everything while trying to save himself. That's not a plan, that's a death wish. No, death wishes are what Gaines sells. This is justice. Brandon opened his laptop. I need you to write an article, not about the murders yet, just about Angeline Jarvis. Make it seem like you're investigating her death, asking questions about the car, the estate sale, discrepancies in her obituary. Don't mention me or the evidence. Just plant the seed that someone's digging. To flush them out. To make them think the story's about to break. They'll scramble to contain it. Maybe make a move that exposes them further. Meanwhile, I'll approach this from another angle. Which is, Brandon smiled grimly. I'm going to buy another car from Wallace Gaines. Monday morning, Brandon walked into Gaines Auto Sales wearing a hidden camera courtesy of Leroy's journalism equipment. Wallace Gaines himself was in the showroom, a heavy-set man in his 50s with the false charm of a natural predator. Mr. Riddle, I heard you were having some conversations with Dale about that Civic. Gaines extended a hand. Brandon didn't shake it. I'm actually here about a different vehicle. My wife likes her Civic, so we're keeping it. But I need a truck. Heard you have good inventory. Gaines's smile faltered. Of course. Right this way. As they walked toward the truck section, Gaines added, You know, that Civic situation? Dale may have come on too strong. Sometimes our enthusiasm gets mistaken for pressure. Enthusiasm? Is that what you call it? We're businessmen, Mr. Riddle. Sometimes wires get crossed. But if you're happy with the Civic, then I'm happy. Gaines stopped beside a Ford F-150. Now this beauty here. What happened to Angeline Jarvis? The color drained from Gaines's face. I'm sorry, the previous owner. Her obituary was oddly vague. No cause of death, no funeral arrangements. Almost like someone wanted her disappearance to be unremarkable. Gaines recovered quickly. I wouldn't know anything about her personal life. We acquired the vehicle through estate channels, standard procedure. What about Eric Fernandez? Granville Gilbert? Those names mean anything to you. Now Gaines's expression turned cold. I think you should leave. I'm a customer looking to buy a truck. We're not interested in your business. Gaines signaled to Harvey Glover, who appeared from the service area. Escort Mr. Riddle out. As Brandon was walked to his car, he caught Gaines on his phone, voice low and urgent. Good. Let him panic. That afternoon, Leroy's article went live on his news site. Questions surround death of local teacher, estate sale irregularities. By evening, Brandon's doorbell rang. He checked the security camera. Dale Haney, not alone this time. 2 other men flanked him, one Brandon recognized from the hunting photo. Brandon opened the door with his phone recording. Gentlemen, we need to have a serious conversation, Haney said. Privately. I have nothing to say to you privately. Whatever you want to discuss, you can do it right here, on camera, on my property. One of the other men stepped forward. You're making a mistake. No, you're making a mistake. You think I'm stupid enough to keep evidence in my house. You think I haven't made arrangements in case something happens to me or my wife. You're finished, Haney. The only question is whether you go down with Wallace Gaines or cut a deal first. Haney's face twisted with rage. You arrogant. 24 hours, Brandon interrupted, echoing Haney's earlier threat. That's how long you have to decide. Prison or cooperation. Choose wisely. He closed the door, heart hammering. Through the window, he watched them argue before finally leaving. Phase 2 complete. That night, Claire asked the question he'd been dreading. Are we safe? Brandon held her close. I've made sure we are. If anything happens to us, everything goes public automatically. Leroy has dead man switches set up, multiple copies with different people. They can't touch us without destroying themselves. And if they decide mutual destruction is acceptable, then I have one more surprise for them. He showed her his phone, a text thread with someone named Sabrina Hahn. She was Angeline Jarvis's best friend. Angeline told her everything before she died. Sabrina has been too scared to come forward, but she's willing to testify if we can guarantee her safety. With her testimony and our evidence, we don't just end Gaines's operation. We make sure everyone involved goes away for life. When do we move? Soon. I'm waiting for Gaines to make one final mistake. Wednesday morning, Leroy called with news. Gaines's shell companies are liquidating assets. He's running. Perfect. What about local law enforcement? I found a clean detective, Leroy Bright. Wait, no, that's me. Leroy laughed nervously. I mean Stanford. He's with the state police, handles organized crime. I've worked with him before on investigations. He's solid. I briefed him on everything. And he wants to meet tonight. Wants to see the evidence, talk to Sabrina Hahn. If everything checks out, he'll coordinate with the FBI to bring down Gaines and his entire network. Finally, but Brandon felt uneasy. It was moving too quickly, too neatly. His instinct proved right when Claire called from her office. Brandon, someone's been asking about us. My coworker said a man came by, claimed to be from our insurance company, wanted to verify our address. Get out of there. Now. Don't go to your car. Take an Uber to the police station. I'll meet you there. Brandon grabbed his laptop and drove to the storage unit where he'd stashed copies of everything. Better to have the evidence with him when meeting Detective Ford tonight. The unit was open. Heart sinking, Brandon stepped inside. Empty. Everything gone. The backup drives, the printed journal pages, even his own case notes. How? He'd used a false name, paid cash. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. Looking for something? Then another. You've been very clever, Mr. Riddle. But you made one critical error. You assumed you were the hunter. A third, that storage facility? The owner is Harvey Glover's brother-in-law. You've been walking into our traps from the beginning. Brandon's mind raced. If they had the physical copies, they still didn't have the digital backups he'd sent to the cloud. Or the original evidence, safely locked in that out-of-state bank. Or Sabrina Hahn's testimony. A fourth message. Your wife is safe at the station. She can stay safe, or she can become a loose end. Your choice. Bring us the original evidence and all remaining copies. Midnight. The address that follows. Come alone. An address appeared. Brandon recognized it. An abandoned warehouse district near the old industrial park. This was it. The moment everything either came together or fell apart. He texted Leroy. They bit. Calling me to a meeting. Tonight, midnight. Get Ford ready. And get Sabrina somewhere secure. Then he called Claire. Baby, listen carefully. I need you to stay at the station. Don't leave for any reason. I'm ending this tonight. Brandon. Trust me. I've been 10 steps ahead this whole time. These people think they're smart, but they've just walked into the biggest trap of their lives. Brandon arrived at the warehouse at 11:45 p.m., hands visibly empty, no bag. The structure loomed against the night sky, windows shattered, graffiti marking the walls. He was supposed to feel afraid. Instead, he felt focused. Wallace Gaines stood in the center of the main floor, flanked by Dale Haney and Harvey Glover. Two other men lurked in the shadows, the enforcers from earlier. Where's the evidence? Gaines demanded. First, I need assurances about my wife. You're not in a position to negotiate. Brandon laughed. That's where you're wrong. See, I've spent the past 3 days doing what you should have done from the beginning. I investigated you, Wallace. Really investigated. And I found some fascinating things. I don't have time for games. Your son, Theo Gaines, college student, arrested twice for DUI, once for assault. Charges dropped both times because daddy has connections. Except the third arrest, the one for vehicular manslaughter, that's still pending. The victim's family is pushing hard for justice. Gaines's jaw clenched. How do you? I know because I've been talking to them. Lovely people. Devastated about their daughter. They'd be very interested to know how you've been financing your son's legal defense. The same money that's coming from insurance payouts on murders you've commissioned. You have no proof. I have all of it. Every transaction, every shell company, every connection between you and the deaths in that journal. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to confess. On camera. Everything. Haney stepped forward. Or what? You're alone. We have the storage unit evidence. Copies of copies. The real evidence is in a bank you'll never access without me. Brandon pulled out his phone. But more importantly, in 30 seconds, Detective Stan Ford from the state police is going to receive an email with absolutely everything. Unless I stop it. You're bluffing. Am I? The email is scheduled. To stop it, I need to enter a 16-digit code every 30 minutes. If I don't, because I'm dead or incapacitated, it sends automatically. And not just to Ford, to the FBI, the Attorney General, and every major news outlet in the state. Brandon watched the calculation in Gaines's eyes. So you can kill me, but the evidence still destroys you. Or you can confess, maybe cut a deal, maybe protect your son from being swept up in this. What's it going to be? I could torture that code out of you. You could try, but torture takes time, and you don't have much. Plus, I have a history of high pain tolerance. Brandon smiled. Ask your guys who disabled my security cameras last week. Oh wait, I never had security cameras. Those were decoys. The real ones have been recording everything. It was a bluff, but a good one. Gaines glanced at Haney, uncertainty creeping in. Let me explain what I've really done, Brandon continued. That storage unit? I knew Harvey's connection to the owner. I put fake evidence there, printed nonsense that looks real at a glance. The real evidence has been secure the entire time. Every move you've made, I've anticipated. Every trap you've set, I've stepped around. You're not dealing with some random citizen who stumbled onto your secret. You're dealing with someone who's been 3 moves ahead since the moment I found that journal. Here's what happens now, Brandon said, walking slowly around the warehouse floor, building his momentum. Dale Haney, you're going to tell me about every murder you've committed. Wallace, you're going to explain how the operation works, who your clients are, how you've laundered the money. Harvey, you're going to detail the car scheme and how Angeline Jarvis figured it out. Why the hell would we do that? Glover spat. Because I'm offering you the only deal you're going to get. Confess to me now, cooperatively, and when the police arrive, I'll testify that you were helpful. That might be worth a few years off your sentences. Or refuse, and I make sure you're charged with everything, with no mitigating factors. The choice is yours. Gaines stepped forward, pulling a gun. Or I can end this right now. The warehouse lights blazed on. Armed figures emerged from the shadows. Not just Detective Ford, but a full tactical team. Drop the weapon, Ford shouted. Wallace Gaines, you're under arrest. Brandon had timed it perfectly. The entire conversation had been broadcast through his phone to the police outside. Every threat, every admission, every detail they'd let slip, recorded. Gaines stood frozen, gun in hand, looking between Brandon and the police. Slowly, he lowered the weapon. This was all a setup. From the moment I found that journal, Brandon confirmed. I knew you'd come after me. I knew you'd try to intimidate me, threaten my wife, trap me. So I used that. Every move you made was one I wanted you to make. The storage unit, the fake meeting, even letting you think I was isolated and vulnerable tonight. All part of drawing you out, getting you to reveal yourselves. As the police moved in, handcuffs clicking, Brandon turned to Detective Ford. You'll find Sabrina Hahn waiting to give her testimony. She knows everything about how Angeline Jarvis was killed when she tried to blackmail Gaines. And you'll find the original evidence at First National Bank in Pennsylvania, safe deposit box 847. The key is with my attorney. Your wife? Ford asked. Safe at the station, where an officer's been protecting her all evening. That's why I insisted she go there. I knew they'd track her location, confirm she was out of play, and focus entirely on me. As they hauled Gaines away, the older man locked eyes with Brandon. You've made a powerful enemy. No, Brandon corrected. I've made a defeated one. There's a difference. 3 months later, Brandon stood in the courthouse hallway beside Leroy, both of them watching through the window as the jury filed back in. Inside, Wallace Gaines sat at the defense table, looking smaller than he had that night in the warehouse. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all counts. 23 murders, racketeering, insurance fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. The judge would likely give him life without parole. Dale Haney had already pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. Harvey Glover was cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence. 24 clients who'd hired Gaines to commit murders were being rounded up. How does it feel? Leroy asked. Honestly, I keep thinking about the families. Brandon had attended several of the victims' memorial services, quietly, just to pay respects. They finally have answers. That's worth everything. Your story's going to be huge. I've already had 3 literary agents reach out about book deals. Keep them away from me. I don't want to profit from this. Spoken like someone who just won a 6-figure reward from the insurance companies for exposing the fraud. Brandon smiled. He and Claire had decided to use that money to start a foundation, support for crime victims' families, funding for investigative journalism, resources for people fighting corruption. Speaking of Claire, she appeared at the end of the hallway, waving him over. It's official. The judge just issued the verdict on Theo Gaines's case too. 15 years. Brandon nodded. Wallace's son had been dragged into the investigation, his vehicular manslaughter case reopened with fresh scrutiny. With his father's resources frozen and reputation destroyed, justice had finally caught up with him. You ready to go home? Claire asked, taking Brandon's hand. More than ready. As they walked out of the courthouse into afternoon sunshine, Brandon felt the weight lift. The Civic sat in their driveway, eventually donated to a charity auction. They'd bought a new car, a Toyota this time, from a completely different dealership. But the experience had changed them both. Brandon had discovered something about himself in those intense days. He was capable of more than he'd imagined. Not just intelligence or planning, but the courage to stand against evil when it would have been easier to walk away. What are you thinking? Claire asked as they drove home. I'm thinking I'm glad I opened that trunk. I'm glad we didn't just give the car back. And I'm glad we live in a world where sometimes the good guys actually win. We do live in that world, Claire said. Because we make it that way. That evening, sitting on their porch with Claire beside him, Brandon watched the sun set over their quiet neighborhood. The same houses, the same streets, the same peaceful life they'd always had. But now he knew something else. Beneath the surface of everyday existence, there were monsters. And when ordinary people found the courage to fight them, those monsters could be defeated. His phone buzzed, a message from Sabrina Hahn. Thank you for giving me my voice back. Angeline would be proud. Brandon typed a response. She was proud already. You were her friend. That's what mattered. As the stars emerged overhead, Brandon Riddle, engineer, husband, and now, reluctantly, a hero, allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Not because he'd won, but because 43 families finally had justice. And that was worth everything. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.